And so I would like to invite the distinguished graduate of the year, Dr. Henri Nissen, to please come forward. He is really, he means a lot to me. We met in the 1990s. I was a pastor in Cameroon before going to academia, doing evangelism, systematic evangelism outreach. Our goal was to reach the whole Cameroon, county by county. And that's where we met. He is a journalist, editor of the Christian Weekly on Funding, author of 15 books. So he's a prolific writer. That's just the beginning. I'm waiting 150 books at least, from him. He is a former media consultant to the Lutheran World Federation, director of AV at Radio South Lingila, the voice of the gospel, in Cameroon, co-founder of the Danish Oasis Movement for Spiritual Renewal, press secretary of the Christian Democratic Party in Parliament, and for decades a national and regional candidate. It's really a pleasure to introduce you to this group here of distinguished guests, and this is your floor to say a word or two. Yeah, very good. No problem. Yeah. No problem. So as he goes for his manuscript, it is very good to have a media person in that position today, because we call it the fourth power in the French-speaking system, but actually sometimes the number one power. We hear the voice of the media. So the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Yes, thank you for this opportunity to tell a little about what I've been using in the last 20 years to study. And this is Noah's Ark and the flood. And the question I ask myself is this only a biblical story? Is it a myth? Or is it something that actually took place some 5,000 years ago? And this is what my book is about. I wrote a book with all the things in, and I developed that into this thesis that I made. So my interest in this started with visiting a very peculiar place in Turkey some 20 years ago, or so 50 years ago. And I went there more times. There was somebody who had found something they called the boat-shaped object. So that was the first. I went there. It was an elevation in the foothill close to Mount Ararat. You know, the Bible says that Noah's Ark stranded on Mount Ararat. So it has to be somewhere, well, actually it doesn't say it's stranded on Mount Ararat, but on the mountains of Ararat. So it could also be one of the other mountains. So many people through centuries have tried to find something that might be still there from Noah's Ark. And someday the natural flights made pictures of the area because they wanted to be sure that it wasn't Soviet Union wasn't putting up missiles in the area, just like they did on Cuba in '63. So one day they saw something looking like a missile. And they looked into it, and the experts said, this is not a missile, this is a boat. So they remembered the story about Noah's Ark, and some people went up and looked for it. And it has the same size, the same length as Noah's Ark, according to the Bible, 300 cubits. And so it was very interesting. But then in 2008, a Chinese group from Hong Kong and a Kurdish mountaineer, they found lots of wood at the top of Mount Ararat itself. And it was so amazing They kept it secret for 2 years, and then in 2010 they made press conferences in Beijing and in Hong Kong and in Holland. And I went to Holland right away to interview all these Noah's Ark people and to find out if it was really true what they told about. And they could show lots of pictures, a lot of video, and I saw it all from this big discovery they made. And it's up in 3,800 feet, so it's a place where no people have ever lived. So it couldn't just be an old house or a monk cell or something. And beside that, it's so big, it's more than 100 meters from one hole to the other hole. And it's filled with old wood, 7 spaces. So this is really so big that I thought, I'm going to write a book about that, and I'm going to be the first. So I went home and I wrote both day and night, because I wanted to be one of the first, at least, who wrote about this big discovery. And my book came out in 2010, the same year in December. And because I had a lot of research already, and the publisher actually thought it would be a bestseller. But it wasn't. It didn't become a bestseller. And I'll try to explain why this happened, because it's something that is important to us all, because it's about the media and how the media works. The media usually are not so interested in Christianity and in biblical things. And especially in this age, they are very critical. They're very much in opposition to all that has something to do with the Bible. But I found 4 reasons that you have not heard much about this big discovery. The first is that there was a Christian scholar who talked bad about this discovery. He didn't actually say that it was fake, but he said it could be fake. And of course it could be fake. And he said that perhaps the Turkish mountaineer, he brought all this wood up, even if it's totally impossible if you've seen the mountain. But anyway, he said that, and so the press had a good chance to say, okay, it's just fake. So that was somewhere where we Christians, we often do a fault. We criticize each other, we talk bad about each other, and by that we kind of buckle our feet and stop this big blessing that it could be really to all the church. The next thing was that there's this resistance in the academic world because of the theory of evolution. This theory has developed into something like a religious belief. Modern men who find it difficult to believe in a sovereign God, to believe in a creator, they find it more easy to believe in a theory of evolution, that everything has evolved through billions of years. And there's a British atheist called Dawkins who have said that this theory gives the atheist some kind of spiritual fulfillment. So it has actually turned into some kind of a religious belief. But this belief is very fragile and it's unsustainable, and it's seriously threatened if there really was an ark, if there really was a flood, and if we find the remains of that on top of our earth. Because then the story in the Bible was true, and then evolution was not true, because evolution don't talk about cataclysmic events. It talks about a long, long period, millions of years, where things happen very, very slowly. But the Bible tells that all men were destroyed 5,000 years ago, and that only Noah and his family and a lot of all the animals lived. So the third thing that stopped this news from coming to you was the political correctness in the media. And I come from Denmark, and you know, we are the Vikings. And if they find a boat, a Viking boat, or something, just a little part of a Viking boat, it goes to all the media. And it's a very big thing, and they make museums and everything, but a Viking boat is only 1,000 years old. Noah's Ark would be 4,000 or 5,000 years old. It's the most known boat in all the world. Everybody knows about Noah's Ark. Actually, in my book, I show also that in Australia, the Aboriginals, they knew about Noah's Ark. The Indians in America knew about Noah's Ark before the Christians came. They had stories about it. It's a world-known story. It's different in the different languages and in the different cultures. Like the Australian Aboriginals, they think it happened up at Cook's Bay in Australia. But anyway, it's the same story. And the last thing I'll mention, that is that actually I think the church don't want this news. At least a lot of the church don't want this news, because it's a conflict. And the church of today want to be silent and not to be seen and to be popular and to be accepted by everybody. And then if you come up and say, now we found Noah's Ark, the Bible is true, evolution is not true, all these things, it will create conflicts. And this is what a lot of the church don't want. So they don't want to hear about it. They don't want to hear this good news because they consider it as bad news. But I'm sure that this discovery will come forth. You cannot keep things secret forever. And even if it should turn out not to be true, if it should turn out that somehow this Turkish mountaineer, he put it up on the top of Mount Ararat, 4,000 meters, and he digged it down under stone and ice, and he made rooms there, and he was clever enough not to use nails, and he put what is it called, bitumen on the walls, just as it tells in the Bible, and it is actually still there. Even if it should show that it's not true, I wonder why the television stations, they don't all run and make big stories about this, because it's such a big story, such a good story. So let me conclude that my journalistic search and research for the Ark has developed into a deeper understanding of how biased the media and the academic world in general are working. They're not neutral, as we often think. They're not objective. They are biased. And but thank God that we have places like Promise Christian University. Thank God for Dr. Adele and Dr. Michael McKinney started this university, and thank God that we now that the door is open for us to study these things also at the university. Thank you very much.